Injury Reserve has finally dropped their album. It's called Injury Reserve. It's a self-titled album. Came out May 17th, and I am going to do something I haven't done in a while. I'm going to go on an exploration. We are taking an album odyssey of Injury Reserve's new album, Injury Reserve. Ta-da! Injury Reserve is a three-man group. Features Parker Corey, who primarily does production, Richie with the T, and Steppa Groggs are the lyricists, and they are the triumvirate that make Injury Reserve, and they're based in Phoenix. Typically, a lot of their sound is usually experimental or alternative rap / hip-hop. Now, the concept art that's featured here features the trio kind of sitting in a lone field and a single green light floats along, and that is the concept art. Now, when I saw this concept art, I had no idea what it meant. It has been a few days since the album's been out, and I'm still not sure what it means. I think it could potentially pertain to maybe their idea of simplicity, getting to the point and not necessarily being too dancing around the actual terms of the agreement, like, okay, we're going to talk about this, but you have to go through steps A through like 17. Here, they're just kind of like, this is us. This is Injury Reserve. And I think that is primarily what is featured here as far as the concept art goes. I think they wanted to keep it simplistic, especially because when you have something that's kind of self-titled, it sort of implies that most likely this album will be about just the group and how they function, how they work, and ultimate introduction to them if you haven't listened to them already. I mean, they've had a couple EPs and stuff out, but beyond that, this is kind of their big official introduction. So, for those who are unfamiliar to Injury Reserve, what is this actually going to sound like when you play it? Well, Injury Reserve features a very distorted and futuristic sound that, again, like I said, is an experimental tone. They never really have a beat here that sounds sterile or plastic or kind of formulaic in any manner that would be like, okay, I know what to expect. They're always constantly keeping you on your toes as Parker Corey manages to pull a lot of different sounds. There's car sounds in, not Corona in Lime, but in Jailbreak the Tesla, there's a lot of car sounds. It kind of incorporates that sound of what it sounds like when you're in a garage, but takes it and makes it into a hip-hop beat. And then you have something like in Corona and Lime where there's these very haunting vocal melodies in the background that kind of sound almost tribal in a way. And you have all of these different really sounds. Now, they do incorporate some classic instruments like strings and stuff like that that really pull at the emotional core. Really, for me, I'm really easy. All you have to do is just play strings. You just play like some bright string chords and I'm right there with you, like, I emotions. But other than that, they really have a lot of awesome sounds that they really incorporate within here. There's a lot of distortion and glitchiness that is present within this. And if you never really listen to experimental, this might be a good introduction because experimental doesn't really have like a necessary gateway of sorts. You start to notice that it basically is being a deviation, not to do it on purpose, because just because experimental music exists does not mean it is immediately good. The best experimental music take that same expectation that you get from popular music that usually has a formula, and it flips the script. It reverse engineers your terms of enjoyment and flips it in a way that you actually find yourself going, huh, I like this. As far as this album goes, it's really sonically sound in the way that, again, like I said, Parker Corey incorporates the environment. There's even sounds of basketballs in the last song, 3-Man Weave, which sort of fits in with the subject matter. But again, like I said, this is a very fun album to listen to if you already enjoy experimental. And I think if you're just getting introduced into experimental, this is something good as well. It also does incorporate, like I said, there's strings, but there's also some saxophones and horns that are also within this album. And for those, again, who are learning about experimental stuff, this is a good place to start because it does give you these moments of reprieve that other albums might not. With that being said, I think it sounds great. Well, if I like the sounds that are on this album, what are my favorite songs? I have a few. First, we have Get the Fuck Up, featuring JPEG Mafia and Cakes to Killa. It's glitchy, full of rage and warning that's balanced with a very soothing second half that retains an emotional core with some gentle strings that allow that frustration to really release. as Richie with the T, JPEG Mafia, Cakes the Killer, and Steppa J Groggs all kind of really go at those characters who may copy or try to tell these guys how to make their own sound, how to make their own music. And the thing about it is that when you're telling people who are already successful within their own realm how to do things while you're still on a different peg, that can sort of be irksome. But if it's like when you're someone on the level of Injury Reserve or JPEG Mafia, I'm not sure who Cakes the Killer is, so I don't want to like try and guess where he's at. But when you're a musician and you have a huge amount of fans, basically you have these different people who also participate in music who are on a lower rung. It's not really arrogance as much as it is, we know what we're doing, don't try to like correct us, you know, don't try to put us in this box. And that is only alluding to something that Injury Reserve continues to really go at here. They don't really like the idea of not being criticized. There's nothing wrong with criticism, but people trying to suggest what they should do and trying to tell them what to do versus actually having any constructive ideas to help them improve. Thus, you get the fuck up, where they basically go at everyone's neck, and it's very awesome. Yeah, it kicked my butt. It knocked me out. I'm dead. This is not a living me. Second, we got rap song tutorial. I also want to clarify that I'm not doing this in any specific order. I'm just kind of doing it in the order that I wrote it in, only because it's just easier. I just literally was like, what are the songs I really like here? I'm gonna put them in a list. I don't really have a particular order. Rap song tutorial, oh my gosh. Now this is hilarious only because basically they're not necessarily overtly criticizing people who do type beats or stuff like that. They're kind of just sort of making fun of the idea of creativity being something that you can just simply learn, that you can just simply one day wake up and be like, okay, I just want to like make things and now I can. And so they do this kind of rap song tutorial where they go step by step, and they seem to try to make this process seem super simple when you literally hear in these awesome drums and this awesome music that it's not that simple. Like they just say, step one, assemble your drums. Also, that's not fair, Richie. You can't just make a fire song in like a minute and then just be like, you know what, hey, I'm not gonna even like do a full, like they did like a full version, but you're at the end of the song when it happens. It was just kind of hilarious and cool to hear this like thing kind of almost deconstructed, but not in a way that like we're watching someone explain like, yeah, so I was playing with these chords and I took this sample here and smushed it in this. They're just like, here's a tutorial, totally follow it and you'll totally be in the same line. Again, it's sort of this, like I said, this time it's not as explicit as some of the other criticism they have, but it's sort of this neat little criticism of people who think it's just this simple, you know, people that don't take into account. And this is creativity on a general scale, because there's a lot of people who think, oh well, it's sort of if you think about those people who try to pay people an exposure when they draw or make something, like, yeah, we'll pay you an exposure because I could totally do it myself, but it's just, you know, I don't want to. It's like nothing ever creative is done very well is never made in a simple step-by-step process. Now there are certain steps that have to be achieved, yes, but the creativity comes from the person, and everyone has different ideas. So you're never gonna get the same thing. And I'm mad because like it's actually really good. Like they're not even messing around. Like Richie with the T brings a cool hook, then he brings a nice verse, then he like it all comes together, and it's just like, why? Why did you do that? Because now I want that as an entire song, and I can't have it, but I have to listen to this over and over again because I really like it. Rap song tutorial is an awesome song, and I really appreciate it. Third, New Hawaii. This song is sort of a deviation, which is hilarious because I just said Injury Reserve exists already as a deviation, so why would I sit there and say that and then go, hey, I like the song that deviates from the overall message. What is the overall message, you may ask? The overall message within Injury Reserve's self-titled album is the idea that like this is kind of who they are, what they've been going through, and what success has presented them, the different treacherous roads of which they have been trying to navigate. To some degree, it's been affecting their lives. Anytime you get more successful and you have to balance more things and you're a little more busy may mean that you can't go hang out with mom, or you can't go hang out with the homies all the time. These different things have affected them. So New Hawaii kind of goes into a more intimate space, sort of about the different feelings that come in a relationship and a love that can grow from there, and how they kind of are vulnerable in a way that they may not present in their other songs, where it's a little more aggressive or it's a little more talking about what happened in their family life. And it's not that those other moments are not as meaningful, but it's kind of this sweet song that Injury Reserve does that I thought was really cool. And the Dram feature, my god, like this man, I want to say he was on Flatbush Zombies last album I heard him, and I was like, I need to go listen to his stuff because I'm doing him and myself a disservice by not listening to friggin' Dram, and he's great in it and I love it. Just that, like, that second part with the strings, again, like I said, I'm really easy. All you have to do is play strings over a really sick beat and I'm good. Overall, New Hawaii really is a sweet, tender song, and though it explores some dark areas, some shaded areas of like how a relationship can affect people, specifically in Dram's feature, and he, like I said, it's really great. His genre is really great. Particularly like exploring those things, I think is something interesting, and I would not be against Injury Reserve exploring it a little bit more, but it did have its impact, and like I said, I really liked it. I really liked hearing Richie kind of talk about and imagining his kids in the future and this person that means a lot to him and the way that he kind of says it. And that just, again, great song and fun little tiny deviation sort of from what they were doing. Now the sound doesn't change or anything, but like I said, it's good. I like it. I like it a lot. Fourth, ironically, is Three Man Weave, the song in which Richie and Steppa use basketball as a connecting point to talk about where they were and how they have gotten to the successful point. Again, Parker Corey is also involved in this because, you know, he literally produces all of the music here. And it's a really cool, jazzy, triumphant sound to really end out, because this is also the concluding track, and yet I still have a few more songs to talk about. But as a concluding track, I think it's a pretty wonderful way. Like I said, I really like the fact that they incorporate basketball into this, not only because it was something interconnected to their lives. It's kind of funny how they managed to end up from that avenue to the other avenue of like rapping. And the reason I say that is because typically that's kind of what is expected of young African-American males, is that, you know, these two avenues are the most popular avenues of which to travel to huge monetary gains and all the success and all the limelight. I guess there's not really a way to like say like it's any more interesting, other like if they somehow became famous doctors or something and we were just like, look at this surgery by this doctor, but I can't really do an album Odyssey on doctors doing surgery. So what makes it interesting is that they both kind of acknowledge the fact that they weren't really cut out for basketball. You know, we're not all Kobe, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Giannis, Anta, freaking long arm, Kumbo, Kawhi Leonard. We're not all of us get to be basketball stars. Typically, we're also not able to rap. Now they were lucky enough to be able to do that, and I commend them on that. And what I also appreciate is that they're able to, again, display that vulnerability and show that like, hey, we failed too. We failed at what we initially intended. And this is sort of their way of explaining that there's always a different path and there's always a different road that you may take to something completely different. You may start out failing at basketball, and next thing you know, you're in Arizona. You and two other dudes are making like really dope music that a lot of people are fans of. Or like with Brockhampton, they met on message boards. They all worked like dead-end jobs or whatever, and then they were like, hey, we're gonna do this band thing. They meet online, they get a house. It's possible. I think if anything, this should like just illustrate the greater point that you should not necessarily give up on things that you want to do, but find different ways to do them and never really lose sight of that. Does that mean work yourself to death? No, don't die trying to do it, but find those open crevices, those open spaces in which you have a moment of time in order to just get close to that goal, because next thing you know, you're gonna blink and you're gonna be like, oh my god, I'm on the stage and there's a bunch of people staring at me. What? What's happening? Oh, I gotta perform a song. I'm famous? What's going on? I just tried to wink there and I failed, so we're gonna go on to the next song. Fifth, what a year it's been. Now, if I was making this video on January 1st, 2020, that'd be pretty funny. However, I'm sure anyone, and this is myself included, can just go and play back. Anyway, what a year it's been is an eerie song. It really has this very eerie, creepy sounding yowl sound in the background that intensifies as both, again, Steppa J. Groggs and Richie with a T kind of narrate how this year has gone for them and how crazy it's been and the different ways that they both have improved. Like Steppa had to step outside of his pride and not really get like drowned in liquor, and rum in order to really feel anything, and he was able to successfully escape that pain and get here. Richie also sort of talks about the same type of things. He kind of notices how people are kind of being fake, and he makes sure that he steers clear of them. And he also, again, kind of delivers another scathing criticism of people who would try to copy or emulate his style. And some of the cooler things on here too are like the way that, again, that distorted, that creepy noise, whatever that is, that like just and it picks up, just it picks up ever so slowly as first like Steppa goes, and it starts to pick up. And the cool thing is too, there's these little bits of distortion within the song, like that'll sort of work in tandem. So like he'll say something, but the next word will be distorted, but then it'll go back to normal, and you're like, wait, what is happening here? And then it just completely the drums start to just crash in, and you're just like, whoa, dude. And you just feel that intensity, that anxiety, that kind of just crushing wall that potentially that might have been how both Steppa and Richie were both feeling at the time. And again, I don't want to say that Parker wasn't feeling this, but since he's literally production and doesn't have any lyrics, I'll just take the production as potentially his anxiety as well. That feeling of crushing anxiety kind of walling you in and then kind of breaking out of that. And again, though Three Man Weave has a more successful, happier sound to it, what a year it's been sort of serves as being in the midst of that, and then finally being able to break out of that rage and frustration finally coming out, and coming out in a positive manner. Like I said, Steppa talks about being able to overcome his pride. Richie talks about being able to just travel the world, and these different things kind of add up to that same thing. Again, this is an introduction to Injury Reserve, how they got here. Though there isn't too much traveling back, it's allowing people to get sort of a nice little peek inside where they've been and what they've been doing. So what a year it's been. We're still in it. We haven't time traveled to 2020 yet. I have the best spot in the house. I'm in the chair. But if you ask Injury Reserve, their best spot of the house is a song off of their self-titled album, which I'm conveniently talking about in this very chair. With a spacey and dissociative beat, they pretty much have both Richie with a T and Steppa J. Groggs both kind of narrate these different intense scenarios that happen within their lives that they had to navigate through. For Richie, just his whole verse, okay? His whole entire verse, I just want to just like put it up on a wall and just make it really shiny, because oh my god, this is a genius thing that I feel like a lot of artists feel. So most artists are able to take an adverse situation that may have happened to them and create something because of it. And we usually are like, oh my god, that's so cool. Other artists are able to create the situation out of thin air. It never happened, but they're able to make something that impacts us, and we're like, oh my god, that's awesome. For Richie with a T, he talks about his interaction with fans and how basically these fans will take certain things that he's made and done as like this most amazing, this really cool thing that helped them through. And the cool thing about it is he says, hey, no, I should not have all this power in my hands. I shouldn't take this credit for the fact that you were able to overcome your own situation. Because though there are a lot of helpful factors within a lot of people's lives that help kind of push us towards getting better from whatever ailment we're having, the most important thing here is that ultimately we're still the purveyors of our own fate. We're still in control, and I'm saying in control, not to say like, oh yeah, you can just fix everything, but just you're in control. And at the end of the day, no matter how many people are around you trying to help you or attempting to help you, you have to ultimately be able to look at yourself and actually go through with all of those plans and ideas and ways that you formatted in order to get out of whatever pain you're having, or get into a better situation, or work harder. Those different things can all help, and they are very important. It's always great to have a support system, but no matter what, you have to be able to help yourself. And that's one of the hardest things ever, because not everyone has the same access to certain things that will allow them to do that. But I just really love the fact that Richie with a T just takes this and says, no, my music may have helped. It might have been slightly a conduit to you being able to overcome something or like be relatable, yes, but you have that strength already. So I really like the fact that he flipped this. Now, getting back to my point about art and how artists are able to create things. songs. When they say his stuff is beautiful, Richie kind of like almost shivers at this idea, basically talks about the fact that this situation was real. This wasn't sort of an artist just going, I want to make a sad song today, I'm gonna play with some chords and people are gonna cry. This was someone died in his life. He didn't go to the funeral, which haunts him, yet he still took their death for his own gain. Now, he didn't do it intentionally for their own gain, and what I mean by that is, as an artist, I'm sure like anybody who's ever created anything can tell you, you take something that's happened to you and it ends up seeping into whatever work you have sometimes depending on what that work is, it'll seep in. So I think what happened was he just was kind of like, I'm feeling this, I want to write about it, but he chastises himself because of the fact that he didn't go to the funeral, and it felt as though using that situation kind of basically makes it look like he was just like, he wanted the attention and the accolades, but didn't actually care about the person behind that story. In a way, it's almost juxtaposed with the fans who see just like the words. They never really get the actual situation that's behind those words. Not all the time. Now, there are some artists that can like weave incredible narratives that actually happen to them, and we go, wow, like that helps people have a very, like, it helps give people that light on, like, shedding like that light on that situation. But here it's Richie basically calling himself out and trying to grapple with that guilt and having a hard time of doing that. And I think it takes some major balls to just admit like, yo, I fucked up. It actually reminds me of Kendrick Lamar's You, in which in this sort of drunken like state, he starts to list all of these different mistakes that he had. Now, you can say like both have an emotional impact, but I almost think that Injury Reserves here with Best Spot in the House has an even more impactful feeling, just because this is kind of a sober state. Now, again, that's not saying, because I freaking love You and I will listen to that song all the time. I'm just saying, for me, that ability to do it sober comes in a different light, you know, but both are still very impactful, and I don't want to take away from either. I just thought it was a neat little comparison. Now, Steppa J. Groggs has a different situation. He had someone who was really close to him. He calls him his brother. I don't know if it was literally his brother, but like someone really close to him almost died, and he told himself, okay, if they survive this, I'm never gonna not talk to them. And then he proceeded to like, they were fine, they come back, and he basically kind of doesn't really, he becomes a human. Humans make mistakes, they make big promises, they get emotional, and I'm saying it like I'm not one either, but I am, I assure you. What he does is kind of just admit that he was a human, he is fallible, and that is the main like thing. Like, even though his friend came back and he's alive, you kind of just naturally start to take it for granted. It's sort of like in basketball when they win a bunch of championships, you're like, okay, well, you know, we got close to losing a few times, we're gonna try hard next game. If you won a bunch of championships, you're like, okay, whatever, we'll figure it out. You know, that idea that we are naturally fallible is something that, again, like I said, is the overall subject matter in this song, and really being able to point to yourself and saying, this is how I messed up. Being able to like appreciate the fact that you can be human allows you to be human. Basically, I really appreciate this as a song, and it's my favorite because it's the most emotionally impactful. It has the highest of like all of them in terms of emotional impact. And the fact that his surviving friend even comes to his concert, and he sort of like, because he alludes to it at the end, he's like, you got your ugly ass grin. And then there's this really cool part at the end where, as he says that, we get the sounds of a crowd, I'm assuming at an Injury Reserve concert, coming in, and then it kind of cuts back out just a little bit and it ends, and I'm like, yo, again, the best spot in the house, usually it's referring to like when people are at a concert or at a performance or something like that. So yeah, that was the best spot in the house, and it's crazy how like you take that same location. For them, for fans, it's the best spot in the house. For Steppa, Richie, and Parker, it's their actual lives that they have to go through while in the midst of doing the music thing. It's a great song, and again, just props to the guys. Those songs are great. Something that's also really cool is when one of your favorite song artists says something in particular that kind of just tickles your fancy in the best way possible. And you're just like, holy crap, did they just say that? For me, with Injury Reserve, got a few lines that I was just like, holy crap, did they just say that? Got the game upset like the '04 Pistons. That's Steppa J. Groggs off of Get the Fuck Up, featuring JPEG Mafia and Cakes to Kill It. Back in 2004, the NBA had the Los Angeles Lakers, who were kind of sort of the big guy on campus. They were unstoppable. Everybody thought that they were going to win a billion titles, and the Pistons were sort of this kind of underdog of sorts. And people were just like, when they both met in the NBA Finals, everybody was like, yeah, okay, so Los Angeles Lakers got this in the bag. And then the Pistons won in about like 5 games, I want to say. Essentially, Pistons win, and what I took this as for Steppa was him sort of criticizing the mainstream and how the expectations of the game is to fit in these certain ways, do these certain things, don't deviate from them, don't shift anything, just stay safe and you'll make the most money possible, you'll be the most successful. And so when he says got the game upset, it's because the expectations are being completely erased and being completely ignored. And with Injury Reserve, their sound is not something you would typically hear. Their sound is something that would upset the game, and not in the same way of like a rapper being like, yeah, I'm saying these crazy lines about the game being upset because I'm spitting so much fire you can't handle it. This is more like our sound, the way that we go, our personalities are something you don't often see. We don't care. It's awesome. I just thought it's fun, and also it just feeds into that basketball history of Steppa because he used to play basketball, as he says, in 3-Man Weave. So I like that. Thought it was a cool line. Thank you, Steppa. They say they want that spaz rap, but now we got these niggas trunks sounding like it's Baghdad. They say they want that real talk, but why these preachy ass niggas sounding like a TED Talk? Richie with a T off of Corona and Lime. This is another, again, criticism of mainstream expectations and expectations from others that think that they know exactly how Injury Reserve should do their thing, which is hilarious because if you try to restrict creative content, then it can't be ever creative because it's being kind of done under someone else's guise. Now, this is just kind of, again, going into that. He said the first half of this line is kind of talking about, you want to do the boom bap, making people's trunks ride. You have to be, if you're going to do that, then you should do that. You can't do that. You can't have boom bap and make people think, can you? Spoiler alert, you can do that. And in this, basically, he's saying, hey, we can make music that bumps your trunk. We just don't have to do it the way that you expect us to do it. Then in the second line, he's sort of complaining about the fact that there are those, it's a classic saying, and I hate to take it and use it, but I'm going to take it and use it. Lyrical, spiritual, miracle rappers who talk for like 5 hours over a very, very just like simplistic beat, which is fine. You can have a simplistic beat. There's nothing wrong with that. You're talking about like a simple thing, and they just stretch it out unnecessarily. They're like a long run-on sentence. Who wants a run-on sentence in their music? No one. That's why no one's ever passed an essay with a run-on sentence, because teachers figure that out and they just give you a big old fat F or E. Depends on where you live. Some people get F, some people get E. Essentially, Rich is just like, get to the point, even though I just didn't get to the point when I was explaining how he's explaining that people should get to the point. You can say something short and sweet and have it be impactful. You just have to do it in the right way. I take this line as not an offense to those, like not an affront against those rappers that do talk in a way, like they rap in a very long-winded way, trying to just harp on one point. But I take it more as, hey, just refine your stuff. Make like revisions and do edits and do these things that make it so your final thing isn't just a freaking run-on sentence. You're allowed to edit your essay before you write it. I mean, after you write it. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to revise your work before it's finished, because ultimately you want the finished product to be the best representation of what you're trying to get out of that. Revise your work, ladies and gentlemen. Next line. Twitter feeds don't feed my daughter. Steppa J Grogs, wax on. It's just a cool line about basically saying, look, like likes and retweets are cool in like that they're social adulation and people like me, but like I still need money at the end of the day. We all still have to function, and unfortunately, until someone comes up with some form of currency that is not that, then we gotta use that, and I need to feed my daughter, so I gotta drop these bars, drop these musics. For Steppa J, it's pretty much saying that, as well as saying like, hey, like music is my thing that helps me support my family. I would like to continue to support my family. So as great as it is that, you know, social media likes me or social media thinks this, ultimately it don't feed my family. And I think that's just a relatable thing for anyone who struggles with the idea of, hey, why doesn't everybody love me on social media? If you're doing the thing you like and you're making money off of it, I think you're winning. But if you're just only worried about like the social ramifications of you saying something silly in a tweet over like making money over the same tweet, like as long as you're good, don't let it get to you. Social media is a very toxic place that can easily atrophy any happiness you have, because you'll feel like you have to be at the mercy of these tools. You don't. Is YouTube social media? Because technically I want this to be my job, so I don't know if I'm roasting YouTube a little bit here. We'll just pretend that I'm not. How far across you want to go to get up faster? Is hard work worth it, or getting it all that matters? It's like a difference between stairs and a ladder. I'm for the ladder. Richie with a T. What a year it's been. This serves as an illustration of Richie kind of talking about people's crossroads and how he's basically questioning, what are your motives here? Do you want to just get what you want to get and be successful, but only in a gilded light where you know that this isn't truly what you want? You want to take the easy way out, do not really work hard at all, which is fine. You'll be able to live your life, but you will never have the same feeling that hard work can really provide. And it's not saying, oh yeah, you should just always suffer through every single thing. The harder roads usually yield the better results because you'll feel like you earned it. And sometimes when you feel like you haven't earned that thing, it'll usually seep out in other ways, and that insecurity is something that anyone can easily prey upon given the opportunity. So ultimately your success might only be temporary, and if you want your success to be something that carries on farther than maybe a day or 3, then do the thing you want to do. But don't do the easy thing. Don't make the easy music. Don't make the easy videos. Don't do those easy things. Just take the freaking stairs. It's not hard. You just walk on stairs, unless you are literally physically impaired or it's actually physically taxing to a debilitating degree. Please take the elevator. In this term, in this metaphorical sense, take the stairs, because you will appreciate it later, and you'll be able to just like, you'll be able to tell people how you overcame that thing. Now, if there are other ways, or like I'm saying, take the easy ways in certain paths. If you want lemonade and you don't feel like making it, you can go buy some lemonade. All Richie's saying here is do your thing, work hard at it, and ultimately you'll enjoy those results than if you were to pander to whatever the easy way is. I guess for rap, that would be just making like a really simplistic beat, saying some things about Rollies, Ice in a bit of an entertaining fashion, and watching the streams just I like that sound. If you walk upstairs, you're gonna win in life. Those were all of my favorite lines. I have a bunch more, but I don't want to sit here reading Genius for about 5 more hours, so I will spare you, and we will get into my final conclusion about injury reserve. You can transition it now. Now would be a great time because it's just awkward. I look like Macbeth. I'm the Black Macbeth now. Technologically futuristic landscape traveling through with some jazzy tones that come in every now and again. Distortion, awesome rapping that really hits home, stays to the point, doesn't try to stretch any idea too crazy. There's some subtle themes here or there, and overall it's about triumph, overcoming stuff, being able to grapple with guilt, being able to have sincere confidence in yourself, not allowing the world's expectations to shape you, but your own ideas and your own thoughts and your own opinions be the crux of you, instead of letting the world be your decider. These are the different things we get on the Injury Reserve album, and it is really a fiery introduction, a very wonderful introduction, and I am very, very happy to have been able to listen to this 13-song, 38-minute album. It was wonderful. I enjoyed exploring it, and I can't wait for the next project, but for now, I have been having this album on repeat constantly. I can't wait to just hear whatever stuff they come up with next. Maybe they'll have a concept album, but I don't think that's Injury Reserve style. The way like they like to get to the point. But again, just like the production on here is so explorative. Like it just takes different pieces of the environment. The lyrics, they're to the point. They're not really always gonna like be about this super deep meaning, but just the way that they're able to articulate things. Richie's hooks are infectious. This album is awesome. I enjoy it. I love it. And overall, this is a great project for those who don't know about experimental music and for those who do. And for previous fans of Injury Reserve, I think that they're gonna love this, or I think that they probably will. The journey is over. We have taken an Odyssey of Injury Reserve, and we have found many things. The next adventure calls, so we shall not be on the Injury Reserve, but we shall go towards it without fear. Well, this guy says, I'm never really on Injury Reserve because I'm usually not on the bench because I don't play professionally. Even if I was on Injury Reserve for YouTube, I could still do videos because I'm in my chair. Get you a job that you can do even when you're injured, I guess. I mean, just don't get too injured that you end up in the hospital. That'd be a bad idea. Don't do that. Drive safe. Walk safe. Live safe. But not too safe.